Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content. All right, first day of pads is here, and look, I'm pleasantly surprised with what I've heard, at least from the offense after the first day of pads, given that a team like the Browns, where you expect them to be a bit offensively challenged, even if you're the most optimistic about the team, you expect a good amount of offensive challenges, and then a defense that is expected to be pretty good, on top of having a lot of continuity and a lot of new acquisitions, high value acquisitions, right? Mason Graham, 5th pick of the draft, 1st pick of the 2nd round, Carson Schlesinger. We're talking about 2 top 40 selections in the draft being thrown at the defense. And that's not the only thing they've done to improve it on top of the continuity that they have. So I expected that the offense would look a little rough today. You know, first day in pads, Kenny Pickett's out the lineup. So maybe that throws some of the chemistry with some of the units that have been working together out of funk. But this looked more like what we've been hearing the Browns quarterback room had been looking since I'm about to say OBR, OTAs, right? Where every quarterback is getting some moments to shine here or there. But before I get into the actual reports of the quarterbacks and how they went in, let me talk about the Kenny Pickett situation a little bit further. So I know I made a joke of it on my first video. Turns out he did not pop his hamstring running an 80-yard touchdown. It was on a play action rollout, which I feel like is a bit more concerning, because if he heard it sprinting, like, it's hilarious, but it happens. If he heard it rolling out, you too young to be doing that, dog. Like, that's strange. But Kenny Pickett, Kevin Stefanski talked to the media. He said that Kenny Pickett is not out of it, but there were some words used, some phrases used that if you speak Kevin Stefanski ought to raise your eyebrows, right? So on one hand, he's saying Kenny Pickett's still in the competition. He's not out of it. You know, he put in a solid 2 weeks, and they're going to use that to help evaluate all of this stuff. But then Kevin said, there's no timeline for Kenny Pickett's return. That's usually not good, right? Kevin never says there's no timeline for somebody's return and they come back early, right? It's usually there's no timeline and we're going to play this game of when are they going to be on the injury report officially. They said they got an MRI done of Kenny Pickett, but don't know anything definitively again. Now, this points back to what I was talking about in my video earlier, where they said, hey, we gotta do another visit to the doctors, right, before we can really know what's up with Kenny Pickett, which indicates that they got an MRI of that hamstring and there was too much swelling to really determine, or scarring or whatever, to really determine the seriousness of the injury. That's not usually a good sign. Remember the Deshaun Watson stuff where he would get an MRI, the team would think he's fine, and then the MRI swelling would clear up, and then they find out it's worse. So that's not good. Yeah, so that brings me back to kind of what we talked about earlier. The last thing that Kevin said that really surprised me was when he mentioned that he expects Kenny Pickett to attack his rehab. Now, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physical therapist. And I've never really had intense experience with a physical therapist. So if you have injured yourself significantly to the point to where you need a physical therapist, let me know in the comment section if I'm wrong or not. But I feel like you're not rehabbing an injury that is pretty minor. You're not rehabbing an injury that's going to have you back within the month. You're usually rehabbing an injury that either requires surgery or, you know, a 6 week or something timeline. That feels longer to me. Again, I am not a doctor. Please default to a doctor if you know one in your life and you ask him about this. But Kevin saying that he's going to go through some level of rehab, Kenny Pickett, is a bit concerning to me as far as, when Kenny Pickett's going to be back. Doesn't seem like he's going to be back for the public portion of camp, most certainly. And I honestly would be surprised if he was back for the second joint practice, the way that they're speaking about it. Again, just to add up all the pieces here, right? Kevin's talking about no timeline. They're talking about they had an MRI, but they got to go get another MRI later. They're talking about rehab already. And the most damning piece is that Adam Schefter broke this. Why does Adam Schefter break this, right? He doesn't break 1 week camp injuries. He breaks bigger stories than that. Tells me that this Kenny Pickett thing might take him out for the whole training camp period, or there's a bigger chance than what some are assuming that this takes Kenny Pickett out. Just some pieces there that feel a little strange, right? Given that all we're hearing is that this is a hamstring injury. We'll see. But that's the update on the Kenny Pickett situation. If you were interested in that, for whatever reason you're interested in that. Let's talk about practice itself. According to Daniel Ofuisi, he says that the practice intensity was way up from last year in pads. This continues the trend that we heard of in OTAs, from players talking about it, from the media talking about it. The Browns had a more intense camp. Seems like that trend continued today. The defense, I thought, had some really good moments from what you could see. The reports are that Martin Emerson has been looking good, Mason Graham has been looking good, and Carson Schlesinger has been looking good. So that's very encouraging. There was a clip of Carson Schlesinger putting Dylan Sampson on his ass, which is great to see from Carson Schlesinger. A bit concerning and kind of illuminates some of the issues that I've had with this thought process that we're just going to dump in Dylan Sampson straight up into that starting lineup, and he's going to give you 100, 200 carries when he only weighs about 200 pounds, right? 200 pounds in the NFL, that's not big boy weight, right? Big boy running back weight's about 215, 230. But it is nice to hear that Mason Graham looks good, Carson Schlesinger looks good, and Martin Emerson looks good. Those are guys you need to step up this year. The QB stuff, as far as the reps go, doesn't seem like there was really that much of a change to the program. Despite the fact that Kenny Pickett wasn't in there, the program remained the same, and I thought that this would be the case. I know everybody, the second they heard Kenny Pickett was out, got excited, thought that this would lead to Shedeur Sanders' first-team reps. What happened was Joe Flacco, at least for today's practice, took up most of Kenny Pickett's reps. Dylan did what he did last week, which was the scraps of the first team reps. And then Shedeur mainly played with the second and third team. This is not really a change to what it's been. I think what will be interesting to see is, will Joe Flacco remain on this limited camp schedule that he's been on with the Pickett injury, right? Or will we see, like tomorrow at practice, or maybe the next padded practice, that Flacco, when he's not practicing a ton, we're going to see these first team reps be split between Dylan and Shedeur. I tend to think that that's still probably going to happen. Like, Joe Flacco's age didn't change because Kenny Pickett got hurt. So you're still going to have to manage his schedule during training camp, and somebody's going to have to take those first team reps. And it's probably going to have to be Dylan Gabriel, with Shedeur taking Dylan's spot of eating all the second team reps and like whatever's left of the first team reps. Or maybe they're saying to Flacco, hey, you got to practice now because Kenny's not here. Either way, what we heard was that all three quarterbacks looked good. There were some nice moments from all of these quarterbacks. Joe Flacco had a nice throw to Cedric Tillman. Dylan Gabriel had this nice throw to Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson, I heard, had a pretty good day of practice. Now, again, the thing with Deontay isn't questioning his football ability. He had 200 yards in a game last year. I don't doubt that Deontay Johnson is still a really good football player. The question is he going to be who he needs to be so he can remain on the Cleveland Browns? Or are there going to be issues that pop up during the course of the season? That's going to be the big thing with Deontay Johnson. We know the brother can play. Shedeur Sanders had some nice throws. We're going to get more in depth into what we saw from these guys. I want to pull up the report that we got from camp, I believe it's from Chris Esterling, who is pretty reliable on this kind of stuff from the Akron Beacon Journal. Let's pull up his reports here. We're going to go quarterback by quarterback to really get a full picture of what's going on at practice. So this is his breakdown of Joe Flacco's camp highlights. Joe Flacco, he said, was the clear number one unit quarterback all day, save for one 11-on-11 series from the 35, and looked comfortable for the most part. The 5 11-on-11 plays from the 35, Joe Flacco threw 3 passes, 2 runs. One pass was a swing route to running back Pierre Strong. Another one was a screen to the tight end David Njoku. Flacco's other pass interception was a nice catch in traffic and a crossing route from Cedric Tillman, who was back on the field for full drills for the first time since leaving with a lower leg injury. Another thing to note is that Jerome Ford was back at practice in limited fashion today, too. Flacco's other pass session was a nice catch. Okay, I got that one. Flacco had 5 plays with 2 being runs, with another one of his own while being pressured. Scrambles garnered noticeable cheers from the fans and the audience. You know how I feel about scrambles during practice. I could care less about them scrambles during practice. I want to see you work the pocket during practice. I don't care about how well you showcase your mobility in shorts and a t-shirt or in a red jersey, right? Like, it don't matter to me. That's not real mobility at that point. Let's see here. Flacco, 2 passes were a first play deep curl to Caden Davis and a deep route that was way too long to Jerry Jeudy, which was well covered by Martin Emerson Jr. Good shout out to him. The final 11-on-11 period for Flacco involved 6 plays, 3 of which were runs, 1 of which were a handoff to Dylan Sampson, who would be depleted by fellow rookie Carson Schlesinger. Flacco completed 2 of his 3 passes. Blake Whitehart caught an out route. Jerry Jeudy caught a curl. And Davis was tightly covered at the top of a deep hitch route, which was incomplete. So that's a summary on Joe Flacco's day. It doesn't seem like they were really stretching the pass game today, but, executed whatever you needed him to execute fine enough. Let's look at Dillon Gabriel. Dillon Gabriel had 6 11-on-11 plays from the 35, split evenly between the first and second units. The first play with the first unit was a run by Strong. The last, a fumbled snap that he dirted under pressure. So he fumbled the snap and then spiked it. In between, he found Jeudy on a curl while he was rolling right. His second 3 second unit plays included a slant to Greg, a run to Tua Toa. I don't know how to pronounce that. My bad on that. And a play action to Brandon Bates that was wide and incomplete. Gabriel was 2 of 3 in his 5 pass play series with the second unit in the second 11-on-11 period. That included an impressive diving catch by Deontay Johnson on an out route and an out route by Jamari Thrash. The first play of that series, Gabriel ran due to pressure. There's also was a Amani Marshall run in this series. I've been hearing a lot of good things about Amani Marshall. Looking forward to seeing him in camp this weekend. Gabriel's final 11-on-11 this series was a 6-play one where he went 3 of 4 with a lone incompletion coming off his rollout pass to Bates, who fell incomplete. The completions were an out route to tight end Sal Cannella, a nice grab on the out route by Johnson, and a crossing route to Luke Florio to close things out. So a pretty standard day from Dillon Gabriel. The inaccuracy stuff is still popping up, right? And I think that's his big thing that he needs to figure out. Whether that is because of his height or because of his arm. He has been pretty inaccurate. I remember that standing out at the Senior Bowl as well when I saw Dillon. It's like, oh, he's more inaccurate than I thought he would be. Seems to have a lot of the stuff down that the Browns want, but the accuracy is the big question for him. And let's talk about Shedeur Sanders, who had a pretty strong day. Sanders had his 4 series of camp with the second unit during 11-on-11s from the 35. It marked a 3rd consecutive camp day where he got reps with the second unit. So 3rd day, he's moved up apparently, right? So he was starting out in OTAs with the 3rd team. Now he's with the 2nd team. We'll probably see, I'm thinking by the end of the week, he'll get some first team reps. That's my belief here, right? Given the injury to Pickett, the limited schedule that Joe Flacco seems to be on, it just seems like they're going to have to give him first team reps unless they want to sign somebody to take those reps. So Floria caught 2 of his 4 passes, one on the out route, another one on the swing. Tana caught an out route as well. Sanders' best throw was on a play that where the pressure from the defense may have resulted in a sack that, had they been whistling plays dead, might have whistled the play dead. However, since he was allowed to continue to play, he threw a strike to Larvin, who made a nice grab at the back end of the end zone. That was a pretty sweet throw and a pretty sweet play. The question is like, hey, like in a real game, do you actually get that opportunity? Because it did look like Isaiah McGuire had him dead to rights in that highlight. I think I showed it earlier, or at least I should have showed it earlier. But again, that's the thing with Sanders. He's made the nicest throws throughout OTAs, mini camps, and now training camp. And I think he's the most accurate passer of every quarterback that they have in there. And his ceiling is the highest. The big question with Sanders is, okay, we know when you have 3.5 to 4 seconds, you can look great. But when that time condenses down to 2.5 to 3, can you do those same things and speed up the processing? That's why I say Shedeur has the highest ceiling of all of those quarterbacks. I think that part is fairly obvious. The big question is like that's time speed up, because that was a big question at Colorado, right? When he got his clock sped up at Colorado, it didn't look great at times. And you had questions about like, hey, can he speed this up? When there is a real pass rush coming at him, when there's real NFL defensive line players going at him. 4 seconds, 3.5 seconds, he's going to kill you. He balled at Colorado when he got that much time. Can he condense it down to 2.5 to 3? You know, occasionally you're going to get a chance to hold the ball a little bit, but really, what can you do from 2.5 to 3 seconds when you need to just get the ball out on time and read something quickly? That's where I think they're working on him, and they want to be really delicate with making sure that they don't ruin him, because I think they see the same potential that we all see with Shedeur, that he's a pretty accurate passer, that when he has the time to play the game at his own speed, it looks pretty impressive. The question is, can you speed it up, and how quickly can you speed that up for him? And you don't want to try to speed it up too fast and overwhelm him. So they're going to bring him along slowly, but he will eventually get his opportunity to play with the ones, whether it be in training camp or during the regular season, because the upside is there for Shedeur, right? Like, it's not nothing, right? Like, the accuracy on the passes, he's made some really nice throws. He's showed he's capable of making some nice throws. The big question, because he doesn't have the strongest arm in the world, is, can you be on time? Because he doesn't have the arm strength to make up for that, right? Part of the reason why Cam Ward went number 1 overall, despite the fact that I thought Cam Ward was not as good as a prospect as Shedeur, but why the NFL felt much more comfortable with Cam Ward there is because Cam and Shedeur have the same issues, right? Cam can't be on time. Shedeur wasn't on time often at Colorado, even though I think he was on time more often than Cam Ward was. But Cam has the kind of arm strength where he can make up for being late by just being great with his arm. Shedeur's arm, it's not a bad arm in the NFL, but it's not an arm that can make up for being late in the same ways like a Josh Allen can make up for that, or a Lamar Jackson, or or Cam Ward at Miami, at least. You know, I don't know what he's going to look like in the NFL. But that's the big question with Shedeur, right? Can he be on time? Can he speed this up a little bit? Because if he does speed it up and he's able to process and get the ball out quickly, the same way he's doing against the second and third teams, that he could do that against the ones with quicker time, with Myles Garrett barreling down on him. There is something there at the quarterback position, but that part has to be addressed, right? He has to start processing this faster, and I think we'll see as camp goes along if he makes progress on that front. But that's what if you're a Shedeur fan, if you're not a Shedeur fan, if you're like me and you don't care, you just want the best quarterback possible for the Cleveland Browns, and you know that Shedeur's on the roster, that's something to watch, right? Watch number 12 and see how often it feels like he's getting the ball out with that proper timing, with that proper pace that we're used to when the Stefanski offense is going. If he starts to get to that point, then you really got something to get excited about, right? But he has to get to that point. That's something that's not easy, right? We saw Deshaun Watson struggle to do that his entire run in Cleveland. So that to me is the sticking point with Shedeur, right? So far, you can see the potential. You can see what gets people excited about him. The arm talent, the arm accuracy is as advertised, right? He is making some nice throws on a consistent basis throughout all of camp. You got to give him that, even if you are a Shedeur hater, right? I know it's a whole lot of nonsense going on every time I bring up number 12's number on both sides of this conversation. But yeah, he's done that consistently, albeit it's against, second and third teamers, but you got to give the man credit for being able to produce that consistently, regardless of who he's going up against. The question that's always surrounded Shedeur has been, can he get to the point to where he's consistently on time and he's not having these bad habits in the pocket that are creating sacks? We're going to have to wait till some live football, right? But if you're watching him in the preseason, he's looking like he's on time, he's avoiding being sacked, that's when you can start to really get excited about this, right? Because that's when you're really addressing some of the stuff that were question marks about Shedeur as a prospect coming out of Colorado. And if he's able to address that, even if it's against second, third team guys in the preseason, that's significant progress for where he was at the end of his run in Colorado. So very encouraging stuff from Sanders. And he continues to be pretty encouraging. Sanders' only other reps from the first three of the final 11-on-11 series, he was 4 for 4 with 6-play series, included a dump off the Marshall where he stepped up to avoid pressure. It's a good sign there that he is stepping up to avoid pressure. My biggest thing with him in his film breakdowns was that he never stepped up to avoid pressure. He always wanted to roll out. So again, he's training those habits and he's stepping up instead of rolling out. That is a major correction on one of his biggest holes in his game. And it's something to note and not really dismiss, even if it's against second team guys. Doesn't mean you run all the way to the moon and start calling the kid Tom Brady, but it's nice progress to see. And you hope that he builds on it as he gets more significant reps as camp goes on at these 2 joint practices and probably in the preseason. Sanders' only other reps came from, I read that already, where he dumped off the Marshall, stepped up to avoid pressure. The other completions were out to Florida in a crossing route to Ladarian for the final play touchdown on a corner route to Canella. Again, all nice throws that he made there. So encouraging stuff. I thought that the offense would struggle the first day out of in pads. They did not. That's good to hear. The Browns defense is pretty solid. We've been hearing that Martin Emerson's been playing good, right? Denzel Ward's out there. So this is not insignificant. Now, will I change my prediction on what the Browns are going to do this season? No, that's stupid. It's one practice. But it is an encouraging sign, and you hope to see these same guys build off of this, right? Dylan Gabriel, the one big question you got to watch with him is accuracy. Is that accuracy going to continue to be a problem, or is that accuracy going to get even worse as these reps go closer and closer to being live contact, right? The same way you got to watch these habits with Shedeur. If you're watching Dylan Gabriel closely, that accuracy seems to be something that is popping up. People say he's processing quickly, he's getting the ball out on time, he's fitting the normal rhythms that you want a quarterback to fit in the Stefanski offense and making solid enough decisions, but the accuracy seems to be up and down. With Joe Flacco, my evaluation of Joe Flacco is not going to be based off of what he's done in the training camp. His career has been long enough. He's literally played in his offense before. I know what my evaluation of Joe Flacco is, right? So less stuff can be changed with Joe Flacco because he's 40. He's been in the league forever. We know what Joe Flacco is. I'm not going to have my opinion changed to Joe at this point. But the 2 rookies those are the two things that have popped up in every camp report. The accuracy for Shedeur, but sometimes wondering, could he get the ball out a little quicker? And then the overall concern about his pre-draft stuff with his sacks, the amount of sacks he took at Colorado, and the fact that he was highest in college football in sacks blamed on quarterbacks, according to Pro Football Focus, which is a concern there, right? So you want to see him address that this offseason. And then with Dillon Gabriel, obviously the height is a pre-draft concern. We've known he's small for a while, but also when you watch him in camp, the accuracy. So you want to see those two things kind of get addressed. And I think we will get a lot of time to watch these two guys because it seems like Kenny Pickett's hurt. Like, not just hurt for a couple weeks. It seems like he's hurt. Everything that comes out makes it seem like that. I'd be surprised if he wasn't, but we'll find out more on that story as well. But that's my thoughts. So let me know your thoughts in the comment sections down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.